Hi. So today I'm going to talk about mantras in Buddhism. And so there's a bunch of, at least a few related terms. Gatha, Dharani, and Parita are related terms. And the term Gatha just means verse, or it can refer to just a single line of verse, or a couple of lines, or even to a whole poem or song. And the reason why Gatha is important is because the Buddha often taught in verse. And sometimes he not only taught in verse, but he would instruct his students to memorize these verses that he taught and recite them. One time, a student came to the Buddha very upset, and the Buddha said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And the student said, "Well, I just saw a woman who is in terrible, terrible pain. She was in childbirth, and she's in pain. She's very afraid. I think she's going to die, and she begged me to help her, but I had no idea what to do. But I promised her that I would come and talk to you and ask if you had any way to help her." And so the Buddha said, "Okay, good. So here's what you do." And the Buddha taught him a verse and said, "Now go and recite this. Go back to her, recite this verse, have her recite it." And everything was fine. She gave birth to a healthy child. If you Google this, let's Google it. Let's instead of Googling it, let's DuckDuckGo it, okay? I'm going to do this live. I'm try to open this up off screen first. All right. No. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here so we can explore the interwebs together. Look for this story. It was Angulimala. You might know Angulimala. Mantra, childbirth. The Angulimala Parita. Oh, interesting. That's good. I'm glad it says Parita. So this is AI. Never accept anything that AI tells you just on its, just because Google AI or this isn't even this. Did I Google this? I should have said DuckDuckGo. This is the brave. Anyway, so the Angulimala Parita or Sutta is a Buddhist protective verse traditionally recited to bless pregnant women and ensure a safe, easy childbirth. According to tradition, the Buddha taught this discourse to the Arahant Angulimala to help women suffering from difficult labor, a woman who subsequently gave birth with great ease after he recited it. Okay. Another time, a group of students came to the Buddha, and they were all upset. And the Buddha said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And they said, "Well, Buddha, we were all ready to do a retreat. In fact, we had started a retreat. We had found this beautiful place, very, very peaceful forest, perfect place for meditation retreat, very quiet, very, very peaceful. And we had started the retreat, and we had meditated all day. It's the first day of the retreat, and we were about ready to go to sleep that night, last night. And then these evil spirits came out of nowhere and just started flying through the air and threatening us and telling us to leave, and just scared us, and we all ran away. And so we decided to come and ask you what we should do. And the Buddha said, oh, okay, here's what you do. And he taught them a verse to recite, and they all recited it together until they had it memorized. And then he said, now just continue reciting this and go back into the forest, and as you enter the forest, everything will be all right. Because in fact, these were not evil demons. These were just the tree spirits that live in that particular forest. And the reason why that forest is so peaceful and wonderful for a meditation retreat is that the particular tree spirits that live in that forest don't like human beings, and therefore they always make sure to chase away any human beings who come into their forest. But if you chant this, then they will realize that you're okay. That they can allow you to stay in the forest. And this is the chant that the Buddha taught these students at this time was the Metta Sutta. And as you saw when I did the search, internet search on the Angulimala childbirth parita. What was it called? It was called the Angulimala parita. Yeah. So there were a bunch of these verses for dealing with everything from being frightened by ghosts and spirits, to dealing with difficulties in childbirth, to snake bites and fire and thieves. There are all kinds of what are called in Theravada Buddhism parita. And parita is a Pali word that means protection. Oh, here's another one. We can look at one more thing. I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see. There we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so this one doesn't have the phonetically spelled out, does it? Oh yeah, no. Yeah. Oh yeah, here it is. So another story when when the Buddha first began to teach, he quickly gathered around him a large number of disciples, and before long they had their first retreat together. Imagine that, being at the very first Buddhist retreat led by the Buddha. Very soon, the Buddha was still a fairly young man at this time, about 35 years old, and at the end of this very first 3-month-long, 90-day retreat, the Buddha instructed all of his students to go out and to share what they had learned with others. And one of these students, Akṣobhya, who actually had been one of the forest-dwelling ascetics who had practiced, I think he was one of the forest. Oh yeah, right. That's correct. He was. I was right. So he was one of the forest-dwelling ascetics that the Buddha had practiced with before when Siddhartha had practiced with before becoming the Buddha. And he also was one of the first students of the Buddha, and was a very, very, very advanced practitioner. But at the end of this first retreat, which of course Akṣobhya had been at, since he was one of the very first students of the Buddha, when the Buddha instructed everyone to go out and share with others what they had learned, he was not particularly keen on that idea. He didn't really feel up to it. And so he didn't go around saying, hey, I'm a student of the Buddha, and let me tell you about his Dharma. But even though he didn't advertise himself as a teacher, he emitted this very subtle glow from his body. A light shone out from his body. And not everyone can see it, but some people could see it. And when they would come up, and the people who could see it understood what it meant, and they would come up to him and say, "Oh, you must be a student of that Buddha we've heard about. Please tell us about his Dharma." And so what he would do was he would recite this verse So this wasn't a verse that the Buddha had said, here, now everybody, memorize this verse and then go out, and if someone asks you about my Dharma, recite this verse. The Buddha had just, included this in his teaching, this verse. Ye Dharma hetu prabhava hetun tesam tatagato shavadat. For some reason, it's but this should be shavadat. Tesam cha yo nirodha evam vadi. Yes, I'm not pronouncing it very well, but anyway, it's a very, very famous chant. There's multiple ways of pronouncing this. The Tathagata proclaimed the cause of those phenomena that arise from causes, as well as their cessation, thus taught the great Shramana. So this is known as the dependent origination, Dharani. So in the early period of the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha taught many of these verses for people to memorize and recite. And I don't know if the Buddha himself used the term parita, but that's in the Theravada Buddhist tradition, that's the term that came to be applied to these verses that people would chant and recite. And in fact, if you go into the home of a practitioner of Theravada Buddhism, if they have just one book, and they might very likely have more than one book, but if they have just one book on Buddhism in their house, it will be a book of parita chanting. And if you go to a Theravada Buddhist temple, they will do lots of chanting, and a lot of the chanting that they do will be recitation of these parita verses. And so this practice of memorizing and reciting verses taught by the Buddha is not something that is unique to, esoteric Buddhist practices. It is something that was taught by the Buddha as a practice that was taken up by his students. His students, in the case of Akṣobhya, took it upon himself to memorize and recite this particular verse, the Ye Dharma Hetu, the dependent origination Dhārani. But in many cases, it was explicitly, it was the explicit instruction of the Buddha to memorize and recite certain verses that he taught. So there, often one encounters the terminology early Buddhism, and the way that I use that term, early Buddhism, refers to what the Buddha taught early on. Some people use the term in a kind of sectarian way, and I say it's sectarian because early Buddhism, to some people, is a euphemism for actual Buddhism or real Buddhism or authentic Buddhism. That is the Buddhism that was taught by the Buddha, and that anything that is an early Buddhism, for example, Mahayana Buddhist teachings, is stuff that was added on by other people many centuries after the Buddha had lived. But there's another, in my view, more useful way of thinking about early Buddhism, and that's what the Buddha taught early on for about approximately the first 20 years of his career as a teacher. And then after that, for the next 25 years or so, the Buddha taught Mahayana. So early Buddhism, which is the early teachings of the Buddha, which those teachings are preserved in Pali, in the Pali Suttas. They're also preserved in both in Chinese and in Tibetan, and they were also written in Sanskrit as well, and in many other languages. But they are preserved today. The most authoritative, well, one, the Agamas, which are the Sanskrit and Chinese and Tibetan version of these same teachings, more or less the same teachings. Yeah, so I don't want to be sectarian about it myself. So I'm going to say that Mahayana Buddhism fully embraces and recognizes the authenticity of these early Buddhist teachings, but also includes the teachings that the Buddha gave later on. And these are the Mahayana Buddhist teachings. And one of the reasons for introducing this idea of early and Mahayana Buddhism is because in the early Buddhist teachings, the Buddha didn't use the words mantra or Dharani. He just referred to Gathas that he taught. But in the Mahayana Buddhist teachings, he did explicitly refer to mantras, and in particular, he used the word Dharani. Dharani is a weird word. Mantra is a pretty weird word too. Weird in the sense of pinning down exactly what it means. Both words, just like Gatha, can be used in many. It can mean a single line of verse or a few lines of verse or an entire poem or a song. And I'm going to just, say that a mantra or a Dharani are just verses that the Buddha taught for people to memorize and recite. And sometimes we find in Mahayana Buddhist teachings that there are mantras and Dharanis that might come from another Buddha or Bodhisattva, so they don't necessarily come from Shakyamuni Buddha. But, for example, in the case of the Medicine Buddha, there's a famous mantra or Dharani associated with the Medicine Buddha, and this comes from the Medicine Buddha Sutra, but the Medicine Buddha Sutra was taught by Shakyamuni Buddha, who does almost all of the talking in that sutra, and the Dharani of the Medicine Buddha is related, is given by Shakyamuni Buddha in the Medicine Buddha Sutra, but this is a Dharani that the Medicine Buddha realized at the very moment of his great awakening. And so there's other examples of Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, probably, Amitabha, giving mantras and Dharanis. But as a general rule, a Buddhist mantra or Dharani is something that was taught by Shakyamuni Buddha or possibly by another Buddha or Bodhisattva, and that is included in the Sutra teachings. There are also some mantras that are particular to esoteric Buddhism that are found not in the sutras but in the tantras, and those are mantras that can be considered to be genuinely esoteric, whereas the mantras and Dharanis that are either in the early non-Mahayana teachings or in the later Mahayana sutras, those are all non-esoteric mantras. Those are all gathas that were taught openly and publicly by the Buddha. And that brings me to kind of the main topic I want to spend the rest of the time talking about, which won't be too much more time, and that is Dharani Sutras. So I wanted to give that background just to make it clear that Dharani Sutras are completely consistent with the way the Buddha taught from the very beginning, and completely consistent with all different schools of Buddhism, whether they are Mahayana or non-Mahayana. All schools of Buddhism that are based upon the sutras and or the suttas, the Pali Suttas, include this kind of practice, this of memorizing and reciting verses that the Buddha taught, often with some very specific reason or purpose. What am I looking for now? Oh yeah, I'm trying to find. Oh, good. Let's see. Now I got to find my list of. So in one of the reasons I'm doing this talk now, I'm making this recording on Monday, June 29th, and in a few days, in particular on Saturday, July 4th, 2026, a group of us will be getting together online to for our monthly Sutra Recitation group, and we will be reading from a number of sutras in which the Buddha taught various Dharanis, including the sutra in which the Buddha taught the Great Dharani, the so-called Great Dharani, also known as the Nilakantha Dharani. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, don't want that. Okay. So I'm just looking at the okay, so we'll look at the Dharani of the essence of the six perfections, and some of these are very, very short. In fact, I'm going to share my screen again so you can see this. Oh yeah, this is what we're looking at before. Okay, so here we got the Dharani of the essence of the six perfections. And so here's this Dharani, Namo Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, Tajata, Dana Paramita, Sila Paramita, Shanti Paramita, Virya Paramita, Jhana Paramita, Prajna Paramita, Sarva Dharma Shunyata Svaha. And so, actually, you can, if you know just a little bit of Sanskrit as it's used by Buddhists, let's see, homage to Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. These are the three bodies of the Buddha. This is one of the distinctive teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, which I won't go into. Tajata is Sanskrit for it goes like this. Dana Paramita, that's the first paramita, the paramita of giving, dana. Sila Paramita, that's the second paramita of sila, ethics, conduct, restraint, self-discipline, whatever you want to call it. Kshanti Paramita, Kshanti is the paramita of patience. Virya Paramita is the paramita of diligence, virya. Jhana Paramita is the paramita of meditative concentration. Prajna Paramita is the meditation is the paramita of wisdom, of prajna. Sarva Dharma Shunyata Svaha. Sarva, so sarva means all, dharma is dharma, shunyata is emptiness, svaha. So I'm not really sure what sarva dharma shunyata svaha what that is, exactly what it means, but I know what the pieces mean. I'm not sure what it's supposed to signify when the pieces are put together. But this is a really good example because this is a Dharani, but every word in this Dharani is, every syllable in this Dharani is part of a word, a Sanskrit word, that has, now interpreting what each of these words mean is one thing, but to know what they mean is not complicated. And then the rest of this is typical of Dharani Sutras, although sometimes they're longer than this, but it says, homage to the noble mother, Prajna Paramita. Prajna Paramita is the mother of all Buddhas. There are many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are referred to as the mother of all Buddhas. In particular, Junje Bosal, or Cundī, or Chandi Bodhisattva, is often referred to as the mother of all Buddhas, or the mother of 70 billion Buddhas. But Prajna Paramita was the first Bodhisattva to be called this, and she is the original mother of all the Buddhas. Homage to noble mother, Prajna Paramita, homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha, then the Dharani, and then a little afterward, by taking this up, one will retain the six perfections. Retain is actually one of the meanings of the word Dharani. And emptiness will have been established in one's mind. When one verbally recites this constantly, one will understand all the aphoristic and extensive teachings. One will purify the 5 deeds of immediate retribution, and one will also overcome all bad views. Sounds pretty good. And then here's a link to the text, and then here's also a link to some sort of YouTube video. Let's see what does this get us.
The Dharani of the essence of the 6 perfections. Homage to the
That's just somebody reading it. It takes about 1 minute and 19 seconds to read it. Anyway, so this is the first one that we will read. Recollecting the name of Moonlight Buddha. So this is another kind of, this introduces another kind of mantra in addition to verses the Buddha taught that can be recited, that can be memorized and recited. The Buddha often taught about different Buddhas, other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and of course, whenever he talked about other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, he tells us their names. So all of the names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, oh, look at this, I should correct, make a little editing, come from Shakyamuni Buddha himself. We know about Medicine Buddha because of Shakyamuni Buddha. We know about Amitabha because of Medicine Buddha. We know because of Shakyamuni. We know about Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, Kshitigarbha, all of these, Akṣobhya Buddha. We know about all of them because of the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, and we know their names. And so one a practice that's very common in Mahayana Buddhism is just to recite the names of a Buddha or Bodhisattva. And recollecting is another name for mindfulness. So to recollect the name of a Buddha or Bodhisattva is to practice mindfulness by putting one's attention on the name of that Buddha or Bodhisattva. Oh, here's the Independent Arising Sutra. So in addition to the little story about Ashvajit, after the very first Buddhist retreat, there's also a sutra that also gives a story about how Shakyamuni Buddha himself first learned this Dharani. Oh no, so it's taught by Avalokiteshvara. I'll include a link to this. I'm still editing this, but there'll be a link to the PDF that has all these sutras in it. Oh, this is good. Let's see if I can find it. This is actually worth listening to.
So first I'll read the Sanskrit, you know. So Om, you can say Om.
Oh wait,
and
I'm
Swaha.
sharing my screen. Am I? No. Oh, I am. I'm still sharing my screen. Okay, that's good. Okay, here we go. This is good.
Say Om and Swaha at the end or not. You know, this is,
Oh, just he points this out. This is good. The original verse doesn't have Om at the beginning and Svaha at the end, and many people like to make sure that their mantras always begin with Om and with Svaha. So you might take a verse from the Buddhist teachings and then stick Om at the beginning and Svaha at the end. And Ringu Tulku here is very down to earth, very brilliant teacher, but very, very down to earth and plain spoken. He says, well, you can put Om at the beginning and Svaha at the end if you want to.
Ye dharma hetu prabhava hetun tesham tatha hetun tesham hetu prabhava.
Wait. Okay,
Ye dharma hetu prabhava hetun tesham tathagata ayavatat tesham cha yo nirodha evam vadhi mahasharmana.
So just one thing that's interesting, I think, at least I think it's interesting, is that he Hayavadat. He pronounces it Hayavadat. I was pronouncing it Yavadat, but maybe it is Hayavadat. Okay, that's what he's saying.
The Sanskrit way. In Tibetan way is Om Yedava Yedava
And here's the English appearance.
That can go very fast. So I think, thank you very much.
Okay. I like that video. One of the things I like about that video is that Ringu Tulku gives a very good, gives you a good feel for how mantras or Dharanis are often recited in practice by Tibetan Buddhists, very fast and kind of mumbled. The Akṣobhya Dharani. So this is just giving examples of these. But let's get to Akṣobhya Dharani. Oh, so this is good. So now, make myself smaller and make the text a little bigger, maybe. Let's see. Oh yeah. If this is for the Akṣobhya Dharani, if one recites it constantly, the entire succession of karma will be purified one by one. All your bad karma, actually, the great Korean Zen master Sosan Tesa very importantly taught that if you have karma that you understand where it comes from and what you have done to create that karma, then you can take the appropriate actions to make things right. But for more difficult karma, and especially karma from past lives that we do not have any insight into where this karma comes from, you have to rely on the power of mantras to purify that karma. And so this is one mantra in particular that is being explicitly presented in this sutra as a way of purifying your karma. If one recites it at the 3 junctures of the day, even the 5 sins of immediate retribution will be purified. If one recites it once, bad omens, bad dreams, inauspicious events will disappear. If one holds it on one's body or writes it into a booklet and wears it tied around one's neck, one will never experience any of the untimely deaths. And again, it's important to go back to what I was talking about before when it comes to parita chanting. There are parita chants. The Buddha taught a particular verse for people to recite to protect them from snake bites. Okay, and so the idea of using these Dharanis as a magic protective spell is part of how the Buddha taught. And it's not some stuff that was made up later and stuck on in Mahayana Buddhism, or let alone in esoteric Buddhism. Let's see. If one is overcome with compassion and recites it into the ears of a moribund beast, bird, human, or non-human being, that being will not be reborn in the unfavorable destinies. If someone has died some time ago, if one recites it over some earth or sesame seeds or mustard seeds and water and scatters it over the corpse. And then so it goes on and on, different ritual practices that one can combine with this particular Dharani. It does go on quite a bit. And so this is purifying all karmic obscurations. Is another name. The Sutra, the Noble Dharani, purifying all karmic obscurations, is another name for this Akṣobhya Buddha. Let's see. Akṣobhya Dharani Sutra, the noble Dharani, purifying all karmic obscurations. Okay, now let me just I want to get to the Great Dharani Sutra. Great Cundī Dharani. Oh, that's good. So the Cundī Dharani, that's a good one too. So the Cundī Dharani is especially good if you are trying to accomplish something that is a very good or noble aspiration. Let's say, for example, you are trying to build a Buddhist temple and you're encountering some difficulties. The Cundī mantra Om Jare Jure Junje Sabaha Buddham. Om Jare Jure Junje Sabaha Buddham. The Junje mantra is good for the Junje Bosal, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the bodhisattvas who is referred to as the mother of all Buddhas. The other primary thing that she is famous for is that she is the bodhisattva of magical powers, Junje Bosal. Okay, so here's the Great Dharani Sutra, also known as the Nilakantha Sutra, Nilakantha, also known as the thousand-handed, thousand-eyed Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva's vast, perfect, unimpeded, great, compassionate heart, Dharani Sutra. So, this is the sutra in which the Great Dharani was taught, and in this sutra, there are specific instructions given for how to recite the Great Dharani, and if you chant the Thousand Hands and Eyes Sutra, it includes and then adds on to the instructions that are given in this sutra for the correct way to recite the Great Dharani, Shinmyo Jangu De Dharani, if you know it. Let's see, I think I'm going to stop sharing now. So, what is a mantra? What is a Dharani? And what is a parita? These are verses that were taught by the Buddha that sometimes he would explicitly give instructions, memorize this verse and recite it. Other times, students would, it would occur to them spontaneously, as was the case with Akṣobhya, who just, when asked to explain the Buddha's Dharma, would recite this verse, the Ye Dharma Hetu. And then also included in this as mantras and Dharanis is the names of bodhisattvas, which are recited as a mantra. Yeah. So one mantra that's especially nice is the two mantras that are especially nice in my opinion are the mantra for correcting mistakes and the mantra for no, there's a long mantra for correcting mistakes. I'm looking it up so I don't get it wrong. So one nice resource, if you're ever want to look up a chant, is to find a chanting book online. Just not hard to do. Okay, one more time. I'm going to share my screen. I'll put a link to this, and if we go to in this book Kwanzaa Bosal chanting, where are we here? This is this looks like Thousand Hands and Eyes Sutra. Oh yeah, okay, good. Keto, which is a word that means pray, prayer, Kwan Si Bo Sal chanting. Okay, here we go. This is good. No, not that. There's a bunch of interesting mantras in Kwan Si Bo Sal chanting. Bogol Jinon, Om Horo Horo Sayamoke Sabaha, Om Horo Horo Sayamoke Sabaha, Om Horo Horo Sayamoke Sabaha. That's the mantra for correcting mistakes. So, it's good mantra to recite at the end of attempting to give a talk about mantras and Dharanis. Boho Hyang Jinon. Jinon is an interesting word that I didn't really get a chance to talk to. It's the Sino-Korean word for mantra. But Boho Hyang Jinon is the mantra for sharing merit. Om Samara Samara Mimara Jarama Ja Gorabarahum. Om Samara Samara Mimara Jarama Ja Gorabarahum. Om Samara Samara Mimara Jarama Ja Gorabarahum. And then to top it off at the end of Kwan Si Bo Sal chanting, there's this wonderful verse. This is from the almost the very end of the Avatamsaka Sutra, which in fact is there's early Buddhism and then there's the Avatamsaka Sutra, which was the very, very, very first teaching that the Buddha gave while still seated under the tree of enlightenment. It was a direct and spontaneous expression of his great awakening. Chalchin Shimnyong Gasuji Dehe Jungsu Kaumjin Hogong Garyang Pongage Munung Jinso Bul Gong Dok, which is a verse in praise of all Buddhas. Anyway, so thanks for listening to this somewhat rambling talk on Gathas, mantras, Dharanis, and the names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Things that the Buddha taught that we can memorize and recite. Thanks for listening. And and I'll put a link to our monthly Sutra Recitation practice in the description for this video. And anybody who's watching this would be very welcome to join us. Bye.